Does hell exist?
To the best of my knowledge, it does, yes.
If I don't want to go there, what are the things that if I do them in this life, God will put me in hell? What's all the stuff that I need to not do? Because if I do it, God is going to throw me into hell. Just give me like the big top 5.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's nothing.
Nothing?
The way you frame the question, is there anything you could do that God would throw you into hell for? No. There is a hell. You may still end up there, as may I.
Well, there's the betting odds.
But no, there's, strange to say, there's nothing.
Everybody, welcome to Swedenborg in Life. Today's podcast is God will never throw you into hell. And I feel like there's a lot we have to unpack about that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think you'd have plenty of people saying, there's no such thing as hell. What are you talking about? God, right. There's God. Sure, there's God, but God is love. You have other people saying, God throwing you into hell is like the thing that makes life go. Either you get it right or you get it wrong. You get thrown into hell or you get thrown into heaven. This is the basic premise of existence.
It's a really fundamental part of kind of social control, population, getting people to do the right thing, is that if you do the wrong thing, you'll be punished very severely. And so, who are we to take that off the table?
Well, we're doing it, and we're gonna get into some of the details of how you can have this dynamic where there is good and evil.
Yeah.
And by extension of that, there is heaven and there is hell, but God is not throwing anyone into anywhere, actually. So this is how that dynamic plays out. I want to start in Swedenborg's book, Heaven and Hell.
Good place to start.
Where he comments on this very thing.
Uh-huh.
He says, and this is just the chapter heading. We answer our question, like this is the end of the podcast, right here. Everyone at home is like, yes, that's it. That's all we have to listen to. The Lord does not cast anyone into hell. Spirits cast themselves in.
Okay, so that second half adds an important piece, which is that, yes, there's a hell, and yes, you can end up there, but that's a result of your own action?
I'm not going to do that. Nobody's going to do. Okay, great, yeah. It's like if you want to, you can, but no one's. This seems like a weird way to explain this.
Yeah.
All right, so this is how Swedenborg gets into it. And this first sentence is a banger. So, and I think this again explains like the social dynamic, the reputation that religious people have built up for themselves. It's good. It's a good psychological insight, I feel like. Some people cherish the notion that God turns his face away from people, spurns them, and casts them into hell, and is angry against them because of their evil.
Interesting word of cherishing. Is that what it said?
Cherish the notion.
Yeah, they just like, it's not just sort of they're aware of this concept, but it's like, oh, I love that.
Dude, I went to a big church not far from here. Mm-hmm. It's not the I go to church around here, but it's the Swedenborg church. This was different. I want to check out this mega church just up the street, Philadelphia. And I was there, and there was this pastor who obviously was like pretty charismatic, or how are you going to get these like 5,000 people or whatever it was. And they were talking about Rob Bell. Do you remember Rob Bell?
Yeah.
Actually, that's a good person to bring up in this conversation because his claim to fame was saying like, dude, people don't go to hell. I mean, in the end, Gandhi, you can't go to hell. What are you even talking about?
Right.
That's my like cliff notes of what his thing was.
Right. That may be a paraphrase. But yeah.
That's AI generated right out of my mouth. So Rob Bell, he says that in Love Wins was his book, and in the end, nobody goes to hell because God gets his way in the end. And in that service, their pastor was talking about Rob Bell, and because this was a big kerfuffle in Christianity at the time. He's saying there's no hell, and he was saying Rob Bell thinks there's no hell, and same people there's no hell, but there is a hell. He'll find out, and everyone was kind of like, I mean, that was my perception, and I was a little shocked because I get if you're upset at Rob Bell, if you feel like he's teaching something that is dangerous to people. A lot of people come to our channel and they comment in our comments, and I shouldn't say a lot. I've been pleasantly surprised by how friendly YouTube has been over this decade.
Yeah,
Most people, but some people are coming into our comments and they say, false teachers.
Yeah.
You are leading people away. I hate you, or something that feels like that. I can get if you firmly believe that we're spouting stuff out of our mouths that's dangerous to people. I could see why you would comment like that.
Yeah.
But and I guess I can't fault you. I would say, examine your beliefs. How did you get so attached to these things? What's the cost of having these, especially the belief that God is going to throw people into eternal conscious torment, which a lot of this is. That's check that out. I mean, are you sure? Are you totally sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Sorry. I'm in the middle of this story. So, or I'm at the end of this story. That's a different energy than what I felt like was in that church, which is you idiot, God's going to send you to hell. It's this cherishing the notion, and it's essentially, this is a club I hit my enemies with, which you're not really taking in the gravity of the situation of, that person's going to go to hell forever and be tortured forever. That's, I feel like, it appeared to me. I don't know what was in that preacher's heart or mind, if that's what it meant, that congregation, but to me that felt like cherishing the notion.
Yeah, right. And the Bible says straight up that God is love. It says it a couple of times and says it in different ways. So how do you reconcile the love piece with this image of casting into hell? And Swedenborg gets into, is it arbitrary? Is it sort of like, I don't like your face, or I got up out of the wrong side of bed, and
you made my face. If this is God saying, I don't like your face, whose fault is this face? Right. Who did this? You did this. Okay. All right. So let me continue this here, because we only got to the first sentence, but I feel like that's such an important call out on a certain element of the Christian church in Swedenborg's time, but of religion in general.
Yeah, that word cherish really does something to me. That there's actually sort of an embrace, and it seems like, I don't know, this may be judging on my part, I don't know, but it seems like there's almost an automatic thought that, not me, I'm not, this applies to other people, and gosh, it's going to be fun to see them get theirs,
And that's not exclusive to religious people. There's a basic operation of what Swedenborg would call love of self, which is your self-centeredness that all humans are fighting against. Swedenborg would say that's the hell inside you, which is, here's my people.
Yes.
And there's those people.
There's those people.
And in some way, they're in for it. Whether it's they're going to hell, or it's they're evil and bigoted, or it's they are inferior to me, whatever it is, somehow they're in for it, and my people are not. That's human being 101.
Yeah, and we've all felt it in ourselves if we're honest with ourselves. And the phrase that Swedenborg uses sometimes is despising others in comparison with yourself, which I find that phrase very helpful, because you can kind of slip into that and it even feels good. But when I think, am I despising, despise, that's pretty harsh, in comparison with yourself.
It's like an old-timey,
no clue.
It's an old-timey sort of way to, who talks about despising someone,
right.
But I think it's the right word, despise someone in comparison. Okay, so some people cherish the notion that God is just going to steamroll some people. Angry. And then listen to this next one. Some people even go so far as to think that God punishes people and does them harm.
A lot of people think that, I think. Yeah.
When I read this, I thought, no duh, Swedenborg, isn't that
how it works?
But I think what he may be talking about is that there's a subset of, let's just stay on Christianity, who think, not only is there a hell, but I think some Christians think there's a hell, and when you're down there, the devil is the one who's whipping you, or whatever happens there.
True.
But some people, I've heard this, that, it's actually Jesus is the one punishing, is the one running that operation and doling out those punishments.
Yes.
And I guess that's again, you've crossed a line in the sand to attribute to God the cruelty of, I'm actually the guy who's going to harm someone or torture someone.
Yes, and the idea that God, which I've heard sometimes, would get pleasure out of the screams and the cries of people who didn't realize that, they
didn't say
they've been
I'm
doing it all
Christian,
wrong,
yeah.
and that they didn't sign on, and so that is really dark.
It's offensive.
That's dark.
I find that offensive. I would go on their YouTube channel and I would say, "What are you doing?"
You don't know the word.
I
of
would
God.
go
You
and
don't know
troll
love.
them. That's right.
Right.
Okay. They support this, but here we get to the crux of this problem.
Okay.
And I don't know why we're starting this out with a thorny issue for us to get through as Swedenborgian people looking at the Bible through a Swedenborg infused lens. Okay, here we go. Why are we doing this to ourselves? They support this notion from the literal meaning of the word, where things like this are said, not realizing that the spiritual meaning of the word, which makes sense of the letter, is wholly different. So the real doctrine of the church, which is from the spiritual meaning of the word, teaches something else. It teaches that the Lord never turns his face away from anyone, or spurns anyone, never casts anyone into hell, or is angry.
Wow, not even anger, not even sort of like, well, that made me mad, but I'll get over it.
That's reasonable to think that God would never get angry. This is why. If my daughter is going to like just talking to me in a way that I feel like you can't talk to me like that, if I start to get upset at that and I kind of get triggered by that, does that reflect well on me? Does that mean I'm like a masterful dad? if you could watch like the dadding Olympics and you watched a bunch of dads in those moments, who's going to get the highest marks? It's the one who gets the least triggered, keeps a cool head, remembers, understands this is the state, is not offended, is not like defensive.
It's not about me. It's not personal.
That.
Yeah, right.
So is it really anything other than common sense to say God is not going to place last in the dad Olympics,
It's a little bit like ancient Greco-Roman theology, which is so striking to me, of that the gods are worse than human beings.
Yeah.
They're sleeping around. They got their petty revenge things going on.
Yeah.
And the idea somehow that the immortals are even worse than we are is kind of an amazing thought.
See where we got it from.
That God is worse than good human beings, because I think most people would admit, there are some people who can remain calm in that situation, and don't take it personally, and they keep an even keel, and and so the idea that God is worse than that, no, it couldn't be.
Come on, okay. So the thing that's thorny is he's saying, all right, in the Bible, there are statements where, especially in Old Testament, God is burning with anger. My rage against Israel or whatever, I'm going to crush all these things.
And even in the New Testament, in the epistles and Revelation, you still get some of that energy.
I was going to say, like, if you think about the life and times of Jesus, sometimes he'll like turn over those tables with the money changers.
Not much. He curses the fig tree, but you have very little to work.
The fig tree. That thing pushed his buttons. So obviously, there's a deeper meaning to that. But also all this, like, I'm going to throw you into hell, and hell is the place with the fire. It's all just, there's little snippets of bits of text that people pull from the entire Bible to try to construct this. It is absolutely not laid out clearly. Like, you'll have like one sentence in the book of Revelation on which a lot of hell theology will rest, really padded out by Dante's Inferno and things like that.
Right. And it's striking that the message that I would say is the clearest in the Bible is that you should treat other people well. That comes across very, very clearly, even when you're in the midst of this mystical stuff. Like in Matthew 24, you have all this very apocalyptic things about the end of times and what it's going to be like. There'll be earthquakes and rumors of war and, and Jesus coming in the clouds and all that sort of thing. And then in the very next chapter, it says, if you took care of people who were sick or in prison, you did it to me, because, that, again, I'm paraphrasing, but that comes across so clearly. Very unclear is this picture of God, because God will say, I'm a merciful God. I forgive, and then, wait, you did what? And it's angry. And it's a confusing picture on the literal sense.
It sure is. And so Swedenborg is saying here that there is this literal sense that is self-contradictory, and it paints this almost impossible picture of God as a character.
Yes. Kind of if you're trying to get to know, it's like a movie where you can't. Is this person a good person? Yeah. Not a good person. What's their motivation?
Did they fire the writer halfway through, and then get a new one? And he's trying.
That's always a recipe for a bad show.
But yet there is this spirit that you're talking about. There is this general sense of, especially what's coming out of God's mouth, of like, be good to people. You're supposed to be a good person. And if that falls into the context of an existence where, be nice to everyone, be nice to everyone. If you're not, I'm going to crush you forever, and I'm going to burn you in hell forever. Then there is no morality. There is no morality. It's just this weird little test. Like, treat people well. Don't like, if somebody slaps you on your right cheek, offer your other cheek. Isn't that one of the most famous sayings?
Yeah.
And yet here's God saying, if you didn't do exactly how I wanted it in life, I'm not going to turn my other cheek. I'm going to throw you in hell forever. There's no morality, because God doesn't even practice what he preaches.
Right. What does it boil down to? Be moral, or I will be
Or
very
else.
immoral to you.
That's what I'm talking about.
Right?
Be moral, or else I will be very immoral to you. Put that on a little. I want to put that on a little. Frame that quote and put it in my office. Jonathan Rose. That's exactly right. If you don't, you better, like, there's this little. I'm sorry to belabor this point, but this is just really hitting me. What that view of God does is it says, the view that if you don't get it right on earth, I'm going to throw you in hell forever. And yet I'm giving you this detailed morality of, like, if somebody wants to borrow things from you, go do that.
Right.
Good Samaritan, all these things.
Yes, right,
what that's saying is there's this little foggy porthole window into this thing called morality, which is that we know that it's a treat everyone well, there's fairness, there's justice, there's honesty, there's truth, and all that. And I'm saying, go do this thing. However, that thing exists nowhere, because if you don't do that, I am going to throw you into hell, therefore breaking morality, because it's not how I'm asking you to treat. Love one another as I have loved you, says, okay,
that's right.
I'm going to love one another as I have loved you. How I would love you then, under this theology, is do exactly what I want. You didn't do that, and then I'm going to punish you forever.
The rules are out the window at that point. I can do whatever I want.
So us being able to have this conversation here, where we're taking the spirit of the Bible and applying it, saying this is at variance with the literal sense in places. That's what Swedenborg is talking about there. He's saying what attracts people to the Bible, to Jesus, to Christianity? It is because there is this sense of this love in it. What made Christianity spread was things like the Sermon on the Mount.
Yeah.
Where love your enemies.
Love your enemies.
None of us do that.
Right.
Also, what do you mean Jesus Christ is saying, love your enemies, and yet he's going to turn around and those enemies of his, who are the ones who didn't believe in him right or did immorality and stuff, he's not going to love them. He's going to throw them in hell forever. The guy that
torture them.
Idea, that derived Christian doctrine destroys the word entirely. Destroys.
It takes away that central teaching and the very thing that made Christianity so popular, as you say, because part of what blew people's minds was that, wait, this is something where people from different social classes, different genders, everybody can get together and we're just like equals, slave and, owners and all that can just sit in the same room as equals and just talk to each other about important things. And the whole ancient world had never seen anything remotely like it. Very stratified society and very like nationalities. It's a completely different thing. If you're Greek, then Syrophoenician or whatever, and to say no, all those are together, and it was new, and it grew extensively because it was very attractive.
That's, I think, what Swedenborg is talking about here when he says the real doctrine of the church, which is from the spiritual meaning of the word, teaches something else. That the church immediately recognized the love within, and that's what made it spread. That's what propelled it. That's what informs it even today.
Yeah.
People who are like doing the Christianity thing.
Yeah.
It's because they're going out and they're doing the hard work of trying to love the neighbor.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, not people who are cherishing this notion, but in general. So this is the second part of that quote.
Oh.
Yeah, we haven't got through our first quote yet.
Haven't got through our first quote. Okay. It's going well.
At the beginning when we said that's going to be the whole podcast, and people are like, "You're a lie. You lied to us. This is long now. I wish I didn't have." Anyone whose mind is enlightened perceives this while reading the word simply from the fact that the Lord is goodness itself, love itself, and mercy itself. Good itself cannot do harm to anyone.
Well, it really gives me a sense, this may sound like a bit of a tangent, but if you read Swedenborg, he talks a lot about goodness and truth and how they relate to each other. And he talks about a type of goodness that comes from truth, which he means that you're living a good life because the book or somebody, a teacher, told you to do it, which is sort of a lower form of goodness. Mm-hmm. And then there's this higher form that comes when you really love it. And then that leads you to a better truth. And it seems to me that that's what he's talking about there, that if you really broke through and became a good person, you got on top of your, some of your flaws or something like that.
I'm working on it.
You let God.
I get what you're saying.
Sort of do the makeover thing, this gradual thing. You would know in your heart what goodness is, like that truth. Like you'd get some truth from that goodness, and that truth would tell you, hey, the book could say 1,000 times that God's flaming and destroying his enemies and everything like that. And you would know that's not how a good person is. You would know it.
Yeah.
Because you know what it is. Doesn't Jesus use the example in the New Testament of parents? Like what parent would treat their kid? He says, you're evil and you still treat your kids better than that.
No offense.
And so, what about God who is good?
And even isn't it in the Psalms where it says, can a mother forget her nursing child? That God is using that because through the mouth of the prophet is saying, you know what goodness is. And you see it when there's a mom has got her little teeny baby and she's like, I'm going to do everything to take care of you. I'm going to any kind of sacrifice, whatever I can to make it so that you're on my mind constantly. I can barely sleep because I keep waking up and looking over. Am I going to just forget about you? Like, what was that? Didn't I have something? Was that? Oh yeah, my baby.
Oh yeah.
So that God is saying in the word there, and I think this is a time when that spiritual sense is showing through. You all see that, right? And you know that's good. So I'm going to use that as my proof that I am not going to forget you. Because if that goodness won't do that, I'm not going to do that.
Because doesn't he say, even those may forget, but I will not forget. I've inscribed you on the palm of my hand. Yeah.
Okay. So there is also
that's the real nature of the love. And so you have to hold that while you look at these other passages. And it does strike me that when you were talking about the parent-child relationship and everything, it's something we've talked about before, that definitely at certain ages and developmental stages, kids just don't think much of their parents, or they don't think their parents they see them in a dark light. They think they're trying to ruin their life, your life or something. And that they're dumb. They don't get really basic things that you understand. So
I was just thinking today about a phase in my life in which I was arguing a lot with my parents when I was a teenager. And just today I was like, that was so dumb. I was being so dumb. But at the time, I was being so smart and so good.
Yeah.
You know?
And so all those images in Scripture, because you sort of have to explain, well, how did Scripture end up that way? Ooh. And Swedenborg's explanation, you got a passage about that? Because that's how it looks to you when you're in that state.
Yes.
You know, right. If you're on the wrong side of it, then you're misperceiving what is actually love coming at you, but you take it the wrong, you're completely misunderstanding it.
Yes. This is the danger of lingering in any part of Swedenborg. It's all the other parts of Swedenborg. Like the whole thing is interconnected, so it's all going to come out. We will, in a second, we'll touch on that.
Okay, great.
A little. Well, actually, you've said it very well there, but we'll like flesh that out just a bit. Someday I'm going to finish this quote. I think it's going to be today.
Oh, okay.
But
I keep thinking it's over because I'm like, my tank is full. You know, it's great. It's almost set.
There's plenty. But I want to return to this sentence here that says, anyone can know that God is good simply from the fact that the Lord is goodness itself, love itself, and mercy itself. And if you think of that in reverse, where you know the quality, we're just talking about the quality of a mom loves her little baby.
Yeah.
Mercy, you know what that is, and you know that it's good. Love, you've seen it, you know that it's good. Yeah. Goodness, those things are God. That's the character of God. And if you know that, and if you know that, those are the greatest thing, and what is it to be God? Is like, you're the thing that I would worship and I would follow and I would listen to, and that should be the one running everything. If you get that obviously informs how you look at anything, including the word itself, the Bible. So then it says, goodness itself cannot do harm to anyone. Love itself and mercy itself cannot spurn anyone, because this is contrary to mercy and love, and is therefore contrary to the divine nature itself. Go on any debate show, go on YouTube and find out, like, Christian debates atheist about something. The atheists are always just going to, and rightfully so, going to be like, you're saying that God is good? Because there's no religion that doesn't say God is good.
Yes,
You're saying that God has moral authority.
Yes.
Looky here, in the Bible, he does these things, which are terrible, and are against, I was saying, this is against mercy itself. Yeah. How can this be God? So people who are thinking from an enlightened mind, when they read the word, perceive clearly that God never turns away from us, and that because he does not turn away from us, he behaves toward us out of goodness and love and mercy. That is, he wills well toward us. In case you didn't know what that means, because you could get it twisted and say, oh, he loves you, but he's still going to put you into hell. There's one of the top YouTube clips on religion is George Carlin making fun of, I'm going to do my George Carlin impression, where he's like, oh, God he's this really great guy, and religion has convinced you that, look at how good I am at delivering jokes. Religion has convinced you that there's God, and he's got these 10 rules, and if you break those 10 rules in any way, he's going to crush you and torture you, you're going to burn and bleed and die forever, and he loves you.
Right.
So it's obvious.
An issue.
It's that you're saying God is love, and everybody knows that. And that's all throughout all the epistles, anything, God is love. And you know that's not what love does.
Yes.
So it creates this dichotomy where most people, or a lot of people, just flee the church. A lot of people don't hold on to those teachings within the church. It's just, wait, this does not compute.
So the idea of love, and then I think for some people, like, you can love somebody and you can be angry with them in the short term or something like that, or even kind of resentful over a longer term. And so people may think, oh, well, God's love still has that sort of resentment or, anger in there. But when you really look at it, that's from a lower place. I like that. Is wishing well, is that what it said was?
Yes.
Like that's really awesome. Because that is the opposite of, like, I'm done with you, you're down, I don't care what they do to you down there. Wishing well,
Yeah.
I wish you the best. People say that. They sign it on letters and stuff like that, right? That's so basic.
If you're going to say that, well, God is just like us, sometimes yeah, we love each other, but I'm mad at you, and I haven't talked to my brother in 4 years because we're mad at each other. But it is not it happens for sure. It is not an admirable quality. The easy way is the movie test. If you're watching a movie and there's a character in it who's like holding on to a grudge or is closed off to someone that he should love, it's never a flattering trait.
Yeah.
It indicates a sort of a flaw or something you should get. The audience is rooting for you to get over that thing.
Yes.
So does God have that? Or is God not the one that you're like amazed that he doesn't get hung up on that at all? Like in the story of the prodigal son from the Bible, where the prodigal son goes out, does all this stuff, blows the inheritance, ruins it all, and you'd think, and he comes back and he's like, you know what? I don't even have to be your son anymore. I messed everything up so much.
Just working.
And the dad says, it's going to take me a while to get over how upset with you I am. I need some space. Maybe tomorrow. Like, sure, that's how a person would be. But the thing that touches everyone's heart about that story is the dad's like, don't even worry about it. Yeah, you don't even worry about it. That's what God is like. Hey, do you want to finish this quote? I was halfway through the last sentence of this one quote.
Great.
Because I was saying, he wills well toward that. This is what God does. He wills well toward us, loves us, and has compassion on us. That's what God's up to.
Compassion. Boy, compassion is a big word there, isn't it? Because that would have understanding.
Yeah.
Isn't that what we all sort of want for ourselves? Like when you do something wrong, you think, well, if you understood, you know, whatever it is, you know, how tired I am right now or my circumstances, you know, maybe you know, give me the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. Don't fall into the trap of the fundamental attribution error.
Yes. Yeah. That's how I always put it to myself too.
That's the only thing I remember from college. Do you know and it's the only thing I know from college, which is that the fundamental attribution error, for anyone who's interested, is something that happens so much with everyone that they call it the fundamental error, which is that when you do something bad, it's because of circumstance. You know, like, yes, I cut that person off, but I wasn't watching, or I was tired, or I was hungry. That's right. It's because of what was going on around me or the circumstances. If somebody else does something bad, it's because that's how they are.
It's a fundamental flaw.
Like, what a jerk that he cut me off on because he's a jerk. That we do that.
I know who you are. You're the cutoff type. Right?
Yeah. Okay. This goes then to what you were saying about the Bible and the appearance. Why is that in there where it seems like God has anger and wrath and all that stuff?
Yeah, because it seems like kind of a pretty major flaw in the book. If that's not true, then why is that so prevalent?
Here's a short introduction to Swedenborg's explanation for that. Heaven and Hell 545 again. Enlightened minds also see from this that the literal meaning of the word, where things like this are said, like that God has rage and anger and everything, has a spiritual meaning concealed within it, a meaning needed to explain expressions that in the letter are adapted to human comprehension, things said in accord with our primary and general conceptions. And then Swedenborg adds a footnote to this, which says, blazing wrath is attributed to God in the word, but it is the wrath in us. And the word says such things because it seems that way to us when we are being punished and condemned.
It's kind of a sad commentary to say, this is not exactly what it's saying, but it tickles me a little bit, that, you know, it says, divine everlasting love. And you go, huh? Mercy, forgiveness. Huh? Revenge. I get. Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Let's go do it.
Yeah, this is what we understand.
That's an
now
easy
you're
one.
speaking my language. Yeah,
like maybe I've felt compassion. I've tried that, but revenge.
No, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, it had to be accessible to us and had to understand. And then there's a stage later, sort of a developmental stage. It's all infinite development forever. Of where you start to understand, that's really sort of my perspective. That's not who God is, because it doesn't square, as the non-believers will happily point out, doesn't square with these other you got a little problem here because it says God is love and he's acting this way. So what do you do with that?
So essentially, the outer sense of the Bible, in a lot of ways, caters to a default narcissistic human point of view.
Yes.
If you're a narcissist, and how would I know? I have no such. I don't have a whiff of that in me anywhere. But what you do?
Amazing lack of a trace of it.
Go on. What else? What else do I have good about me? But one of the things that they've studied and found out is like you blame everybody else for everything that goes wrong,
yes,
and you have no sense of or willingness to take account for your impact on things.
Right.
So this, and again,
one thing I know is it couldn't be my fault.
Well, it doesn't even cross my mind.
Just couldn't be.
And being a teenager is just like being a little narcissist. And so again, when you're like, oh, my stupid parents aren't letting me go and do this dangerous thing. They're like, this is so, or just because I did these things I wasn't allowed to do. Now I'm grounded and I can't. Now I'm so mad about that. That's how it feels. Like, oh, this is the man getting me down, when actually, like, you might be part of the problem. So in the Bible, according to Swedenborg, and he fleshes this out in a lot of other places, the stuff that goes wrong in there is the picture of the damage you do to yourself when you reject God, or when you embrace evil, not the punishment God brings on you for doing those things.
Yes. If this is the God you want, then you're on the right track. In other words, if that's your worldview, your mindset, this is how God looks from that hell perspective. God does look vengeful and petty, or, they got singled out or something like that. That's how it looks from that narcissistic perspective.
So we've established that there is hell. However, what we've spent the first part of this setting up is that God is incapable, is physiologically incapable of having any kind of negative emotion towards you.
This is what suddenly pops into my head, is that, couldn't you say, if heaven really is heaven, couldn't you say wishes you well equals wishes you heaven?
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Wishes you well equals wishes you heaven. So wouldn't, whatever's best for you kind of thing, but that does not equal I wish you hell. Like, God is not sitting around thinking, I wish hell on you.
Right.
I hope you go to hell.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So God wishes you well. And as such, can't be, my intent is to just go put you into hell where you're just so that you're miserable in there. It doesn't
I can forget about you.
Yes. And we established that's not what God's doing. And here's why the Bible is like it is. Now we're going to switch gears and talk about how do people end up in hell? Because Swedenborg,
because we haven't covered that.
Swedenborg went and visited the afterlife, and he saw something that he called heaven, saw something he called hell, and there's plenty of people in hell.
Even saw some people he knew going there or headed there or already there. Yep.
Then by what mechanism do they get there?
Yes, right.
Hey, I've got an announcement. Hope you're enjoying the show. If you are, you can become a member. There is a little join button that is below each video and on the channel homepage. You click that and you can sign up to be a member of Off the Left Eye. If you do that, we are going to give you custom emojis that you can use when we're premiering a show or when you comment on this channel. You get custom badges that show how long you've been a fan of this channel, so you can say to your friends, you haven't been a member as long as I have. That will feel good. And you get behind the scenes photos and members only posts as a way for us to say thank you to you. So it's a fun way to support the channel and make what we do possible. So click that button, join, become a member today. Okay, back to the show. So there is a hell, and it's full of people who are all there voluntarily. People choose to be in hell.
Odd notion, I admit.
Yeah, that's the X factor that Swedenborg introduces into this equation. It's really the shocking claim, I feel like, is not that God cannot send anyone into hell. I think there's a lot of people who get that love doesn't intentionally harm. But the idea that there still is hell and that it's got plenty of people in it, that's the shocking claim.
Yeah, because often you would pair that God doesn't throw into people into hell. Pair that with there is no hell. You know,
no hell.
I mean, it's just all love and everybody wins and all.
So this section shows how do people end up choosing hell? Where would you get to a point where you're like, nobody's saying I have to go in there. I'm going in there anyway.
Going. Yeah.
All right. So good and evil. We got good and evil. They're opposites.
Okay.
It's like light and dark, heat and cold. Like the evil is just an absence of good. It's a blocking of God. So you've heard it before. Free will. Human beings have free will.
Okay. Free will. Mm-hmm.
So we can choose. Are we going to be into all that stuff we were talking about before? Mercy and love and everything that God is. Are you into that stuff? You don't have to be. This is how it plays out. This is from Heaven and Hell 547. Far from leading us into hell, the Lord frees us from hell to the extent that we do not intend and love to be absorbed in our evil.
To the extent. So there's a condition. It's conditional. Yeah, to the extent. All right.
What blocks you from the Lord leading you into heaven is when you intend and love to be absorbed in an evil.
Yes, absorbed. Right.
So an evil...
Like it's your focus.
Evil and good are the two different kinds of pleasure you can have in life. There's a pleasure of good, which is all the pleasure in doing something constructive. So if you're helping somebody, if you're accomplishing something useful, if you're participating in love or mercy or kindness or fairness or any good positive attribute, and you like it, that's good.
It has so much to do with the liking part. It took me a long time to get that because it's not even so much what you do. It's not our actions totally matter. But Swedenborg suggests that a big component is how you feel afterward about something you did. Because sometimes, I mean, we're all children in a way and we experiment with life and so, well, try this, try that. But how do you feel afterwards? Does that still give you delight that you did that nasty thing or something? Or do you regret it? Or is there some part of you that feels like, oh, that I'm ashamed that I did that?
I saw a documentary, it was probably on Netflix or something, about in the UK, there had been a fight and someone had punched somebody, just one punch, and they had died from it. And when I first hear that, I get really angry at the person who did the punch. I'm like, you're so stupid. Why would you even be in a fight in the first place? What are you doing? You ruin these people's lives and stuff. And so at first they have like the interview, all the people who knew the guy who died in that fight and the people and how devastating that is. And I'm just kind of like, wow, this person that killed that person is such a jerk. But then they brought that guy on and he's just like a shell of a person. And he's like, you can tell he's like, oh, this was so stupid. I was young. We were drunk or something. And like, and he's like,
there's the same criticism of himself.
I didn't like, and he's just like completely, racked by guilt and grief over what he's caused. He's like still trying to make amends for it. He's saying that this is what this guy would have wanted. So I'm trying to do that. My feelings to him totally changed. It's the same action still happened.
Yes.
But what you're trying to do now, you can't go and take that back. And you don't even know at the time. Like you might not have been thinking anything. He's just like, but how you feel now, you just know that changes how it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the particular, that delight. It's a really awful example, but I heard years ago about people who are involved in this, where there's really a genocide going on and there were people involved in really going out with machetes and
where's that?
Butchering
Where
people.
In the world?
It was Horn of Africa somewhere.
Yeah.
It was one of those problems. I forget the country. And they were interviewing one of the people who was doing those things. And he said, after a while, it is just so intensely delightful. And he later pulled away from that. But I was really, really interested because to me it feels, well, I can imagine like, okay, you feel like something has to be done or it's for a cause or something like that. So you but it's just still horrible, absolutely horrible. Like it fries your soul to do something like that. But that it actually got to the point where it's kind of addicting. Like he loved it. That was really interesting to me. And I think going way down that path, like if you really totally commit to that, like that's your chief delight, that's not a heavenly delight to have.
Well, and how can it be? If you love and you're absorbed in your evil, that is that can't live side by side with kindness and morality, courtesy. So if you intend and love and are absorbed in your evil, that makes it impossible for God to free you from hell, because that evil is hell itself. The pleasure in that evil is what hell is.
It's not Swedenborg often says it's not a place. A lot of people think it's a place. If you're there, just leave, but it's that state in your heart. It's what you love the most.
He goes on, our whole volition and love stays with us after death. People who have intended and loved what is evil in the world intend and love what is evil in the other life, and then they no longer allow themselves to be led away from it. This is why people who are absorbed in evil are connected to hell and actually are there in spirit. And after death, they crave above all to be where their evil is. So after death, it is we, not the Lord, who cast ourselves into hell.
And I think it's likely to be the case that Swedenborg's not talking about, kids in school who get a kick out of teasing somebody else because they look weird or something like that. When he uses words like love and absorbed in, there's some passage where he says that eventually it becomes what is ruling in your life. Like you will give up anything. This is the thing you love above all. It's not that you just sometimes did it and it was kind of enjoyable or something. He's not talking about that. He's talking about something that takes over your whole life, where you would sacrifice everything for that thing. And if that's your condition about cruelty, revenge, other things of this kind, that doesn't work with heaven very well.
If you're going to go and buy a house and you're choosing a region of the country you're in to live in, there's a bunch of things on your list, but there's something that this is. If you go watch like a home, these people are going to try to buy a home and bicker while they do it on Home and Garden TV channel show. There's something that's like, this is a deal breaker. It has to have this.
It has to have this.
Whether it's commute time or whether it's the climate or it's as access to nature. Is it the size? There's something that's like, all the other. It's nice if it has, a paved driveway, but that's like I can cut. There's something though this is what's going to make me choose this house.
It's a deal breaker, right?
The spiritual world is a big, giant place, and everybody there has their. Something can come and go, but I gotta be near this.
Yes, that's right. Swedenborg talks about the dying process and where people are exposed to different kinds of angels, different kinds of spirits over time. And he says the angels never want to leave anybody because they have that same quality of divine love flowing into them. But people long to get away from them. It's such a kind of painful, imagine being those angels just like, this is great, but I can't, I used to have this fridge magnet that said, it's been great, but I have to scream now. Or something like, I'm done with this interaction. I've got to go somewhere else. Yeah. And when they get to that longing of it, it's sort of like when you're a kid and you're all dressed up to go to church and you just want to, get with your friends and get out of the church clothes and all this stuff. Where, and another way Swedenborg puts it is where you feel you can breathe, And we've all had that experience where you go into an environment and you sort of, you feel like you can't breathe for whatever it is. I'm not talking about the physical air. I mean, sort of the spirit of a place is like, oh, I'm not that into, whatever it is and that's going on in there. And so people find that place where they feel like these are my people. They get me. They love the same things I love. I don't think much of them, but this is my home kind of thing. I think that's kind of the attitude in hell.
I was going to try to find a place for my family to go on vacation to, and it was on the beach. And I was like trying to figure out, is this a good place for us to go? And I was reading reviews, and I looked, and some of the critical reviews said, this place is not near any nightlife. It's everything's too quiet. There's just surrounded by nature preserves. And I was like, ding,
ding. That's my
sign me up.
Jam.
Because somebody's going to be there, and they're going to say, I did not come all the way here to be bored because I like going out to restaurants and bars and stuff. Whereas me, I say, it's 8:30. Let's go to bed. This is too late. I want to get up and see the nature tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's fine. Yeah, but you have certain... So that everything sounds complicated and like it gets you overthink it if you're talking about, well, there's God and there's angels and heaven and hell. Of course you'd want to go. It's just about what do you love to do. And if you're that person that you were talking about who is, I've acquired a taste for killing people and I want to do that. Or in a less extreme, if you just, you live a life where...
That's really extreme.
Where you have a desire to dominate the people around you, to work your will on them, to win all the arguments, to have things your way, to despise people other than yourself. And that is where you get the joy of your life, is when you win those things. Then fine. That there's a location that is that in the afterlife.
Yes.
And there's the things that make up what God is, it's the opposite of that. You're not going to be into that scene. It's not going to feel good. So there's a self-selection process, but it's not arbitrary. It's not really calculated. It is, I've spent my life coming to love certain things. That's a make or break. I can go live anywhere in this afterlife. I got to live near what I love. The thing that brings me the most joy, I got to be there.
Yeah. I'm thinking about that hilarious show. I think it was called What We Do in the Shadows. And it had this energy vampire guy who was so funny because what he loved was just draining. People are happy in the morning and he's just able to say something like, oh, your license plate looks like it's about to expire, and just loved to drain the life out of them, where they just, after spending time with them, they can hardly move and that's his joy. Yeah. He just loves figuring out ways, and he's so delighted with the invention of social media because this is a great way for him to, reach more people with what he loves to do.
So there you go.
But they're really, it's funny, but they're,
no, that's
there
exactly
are kind of like a energy black hole or something. They sort of suck all the air out of the room, and some people may be that way for whatever reason, but if that's what they love, that's the key. If that's what delights them, is to see the smiles go off other faces when they come into the room. Yeah. Or to inspire fear in people, or to just crush their dreams, or break them.
Yeah, you can love that. You just can't do that over here because I don't want to hang out with that. Yeah. So this is you alluded to this a minute ago. This is Swedenborg describing, with that dynamic there, the people are motivated by what they love. They cultivate what they love over the course of their lives, and they're attracted to that in the afterlife. This is how it plays out when you get there. It says, when we arrive in the other life, we are first taken up by angels who do everything for us and also tell us about the Lord, heaven, and angelic life, and offer us lessons in what is good and true. And that's everybody. It's not
that's
like
where you start. Everybody.
If you're a bad person, you don't get to do. Everybody gets to do that.
Everybody, yeah. I think that some people have that view of like, oh, you're going to hell, kind of thing, that because of what you did or who you are. But everybody starts in heaven with the highest angels. They start at the top.
We're going to do anything you want. However, he continues, if we as spirits are the kind of people who have been familiar with things like this in the world, but have denied or rejected them at heart, then after some conversation, we want to get away from them and try to leave. Like, just like stop with this like goody two shoes kumbaya. This is annoying. You guys are dorks. When the angels notice this, they leave us. Like, oh, you don't want this. Okay.
They're very perceptive. They're nothing but perceptive, and they work with people all day long. They've seen various different types. They know. Oh yeah. Okay, you're out. Okay. Well, it's nice spending time with you.
After spending some time with various other people, we eventually take up with people who are devoted to similar evils. When this happens, we are turning away from the Lord, turning our faces toward the hell we were united to in the world, where people live who are engaged in a similar love of evil.
Yeah.
So it's like, you get to go around, hang out with whoever you want to hang out with, and if you feel like, oh, these are my people, because we all got the same sort of thing. Now I'm starting to understand, okay, right, I could see how people want to self-select into hell, because in hell is the pleasure of the things that I want to do that are like you have heaven sitting there, and these are the greatest people from heaven. Angels they're people who are got that love and truth radiating out of everything, and they're sitting here like, here's what heaven's all about. Here's how it works. Here's what you can do. Here's all this. And if you're in that conversation, you feel like this is not my scene. Okay, I'm gonna go find where my scene is.
Yeah, and he's not talking about everybody there, because he talks about some people who go to heaven at the very hour of death, like they're totally ready to go. They're already in an angelic state. So it's not universal or anything. But if that's what you have in your heart, you sort of seek your own level. You find your people, the environment that's devoted to that same thing that you love the most. And I can see, as you say that there's a sense of life in what you love. Swedenborg talks a lot about how love and life having a connection with each other. And so you don't want to be somewhere where your life isn't.
Yeah.
To everybody, there's some environment where they're like, I can't live here. Everything that everybody's thinking about, talking about all day long has zero interest to me. And where's the thing I love? Where's the thing that should be central, the thing that we should be focusing on? And everybody would think that about various other communities. Like, this is not it.
Where's the celebrity gossip?
I've got to go where I feel alive.
You think about this, we're pretty deep. This has been a long conversation. And some people are perfectly happy to sit here. Perfectly happy might be a strong word. They tolerate.
Yeah, that's
sitting
right.
here.
Yeah.
Because these kinds of subjects are interesting to them. So many people, like, think if you made them watch this.
Yes.
And vice versa with a million other kinds of programs.
Yeah.
So you might think there's this idea out there that standard Christian theology is everything was going to be good, Garden of Eden, Eve ate the apple, and so everything went sideways.
Yes.
So God has said, all right, or maybe in some denominations it's like, oh, Lucifer started up. Somehow hell comes into being as, well, this is my solution to these bad people. Like, this is the punishment that I'm going to have.
Yes.
And this is how I get back at them for being bad.
Right.
Whereas Swedenborg asserts that the creation of hell, or the allowance of hell to exist, where God takes himself back far enough that you have that's actually for the sake of the people who would be in hell.
It's a very loving thing for someone who does not really rejects the idea of God, or doesn't want to hear about it.
I'm going to create a space where you can be who you want to be. You don't want to hang out with me? Okay, I'll back up.
Even though God is everywhere, somehow that divine love created a whole area where God is apparently not present, and you can turn your back and just live without having to have that consciousness or that irritation of the thought of the presence of God and all that.
This is how Swedenborg describes it. We can see from this that the Lord is leading every spirit toward himself through angels and through an inflow from heaven, but that spirits who are absorbed in evil resist strenuously and virtually tear themselves away from the Lord. They are drawn by their evil, by hell that is, as though it were a rope. And because they are drawn and want to follow because of their love of evil, it follows that they freely cast themselves into hell.
Yeah, okay, that's great, because then there's this sense of this kind of, I mean, some of the sci-fi movies talk about a tractor beam or something.
Right.
It's not just a level playing field in a sense. The Lord, all these angels, they're all trying in every way to draw you.
Right.
There's this whole tractor beam thing. Swedenborg talks about the stream of providence that's all pulling in this way. And really, the only way that you get out of that stream is if there's something else in your heart that's pulling you in the opposite direction. Otherwise, you will just... There was some poem called "The Hounds of Heaven" about these hounds from heaven are coming to, take you to heaven. It's not merely left up to us. We're not, after we die, we're not just sort of, alone and say, I don't know what to do. I don't know where I am. No, there's a whole system there that's to draw you in. If you're the least bit willing, and Swedenborg says that he sees people who he thinks don't have a spark of spiritual life. They live their lives in drunkenness and chaos and disorder and everything, and he thinks, I don't know, and then he just sees them like overnight. They're coming to life. They responded to something because there's the tractor beam worked. It pulled them out of there. So you've really got to be pretty determined. It's like fighting a really strong. It's like a riptide. You've got to swim against a good riptide. You've got to figure out a way to go in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Which takes a lot of strength and determination to end up going to hell.
Nothing better than getting out to the beach and you're there with your family and there's a flag that says "Good Riptide." Yeah. It's like if you get in that, you're gonna be safer and happier.
I'm so happy.
Than before you got in that. Like, come on, kids, let's go.
Let's go. This will take us.
Contrast that. Contrast the good tractor beam with, isn't it John Wesley, who he was a preacher in United States of America, 1800s or something. He gave this famous sermon called "Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God."
That was actually Jonathan Edwards. But yes, absolutely right.
John Wesley did Methodism?
He was Methodist. He was in England. But they both had a very strong sense of hell.
So, okay, let's just say, I got the name wrong. I got the continent wrong.
I think you got it all right.
This is cool because it's like you're like Chat GPT. I could just say anything, and I know you'll correct it. So anyway, John, whoever his name was, sinners in the hands of an angry God. Now, unless I'm mistaken, doesn't he talk about you were like dangling from a thread, and if God just cuts that, we'll fall into hell.
I forget the imagery, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
I'm 0 for 2, so I'm probably going to be 1 for 3 on this. That's different, and there is that, like, you are like, hell is just sitting there, and you are like, your sin is so bad, you are going to
hanging by a thread,
like the gravity is pulling you to it.
One wrong thought, one wrong move,
snip. You're gone.
You're gone.
Contrast that with God is like, the deck is stacked. Like, I'm going to try to get you to love what is good and true, and I'm going to keep on pursuing it. I'm going to keep going after you. The only way you can get out of this is to tear yourself out by hopping in and loving something that is dead set against human beings living together in love.
Just vigorously antisocial.
Okay, so it goes on from there. This is hard to believe in the world, the idea that we would freely cast ourselves into hell.
Yeah, right.
Because of people's notions about hell. In fact, it does not even look that way in the other life. It looks different for people who are outside of hell, though, not to the people who are actually casting themselves in. So it can even look in the afterlife like people are getting thrown into hell. But it says people are casting themselves in. They are entering voluntarily. And in the ones who are doing so out of a burning desire for evil, look as though they were diving in head first. This is why it looks as though they were being thrown into hell by divine power.
Oh, that's awesome. So there's even a basis in that sort of spiritual experience of thinking that people are being cast in, because it looks that way. And Swedenborg has these great descriptions of people going up to heaven thinking, "Oh, I just can't wait to see heaven. I've been excited about it all my life," but they really don't have the right things in their heart and mind to be there, and they it's just torment. It's absolute torment, and they finally throw themselves out of there because they're dying to get back to the thing that they love, where they can breathe.
Yeah.
And I've also thought that, I don't know, but I've also thought that isn't it human nature, especially if there's any, I don't know, that society frowns on, whatever it is, some antisocial behavior that you have or something. So you want to make it look like it's God's fault. Like, I can't help it. Oh, no, I wanted to go to, what are you doing to me? And putting on a little bit of a show.
Yep.
When actually you're just, that looks good. I'm going to dive down there.
So again, you'd never think, there's some people who go up into heaven and don't like it there. Aren't feeling a pleasant experience there. Isn't heaven just everything's nice? You have a big fancy house. The climate is perfect.
Yeah, the temperature's great.
Heaven and hell are different. They are these states of being, and it's like saying,
they're opposites.
I want to go see the view from Mount Everest. I'm gonna walk up there right now. I guess I'll get some hiking boots, but here I go. You can't. You have to train for a long time.
Be a pleasant experience.
That you can't handle the altitude up there. You can't take the strenuous nature of the climb. You can get there, but you're going to have to do some training first. So this is why...
And you'll probably feel like you're dying most of the last 20,000 feet up or something.
This is why we're in the world, is that we're training to be able to make that climb into heaven, is that we're getting to love the kinds of things that you love when you're in heaven.
That's right. This is why it seems so important to have good quality information about the nature of evil and to have some time to work on it. Choose to move away from that because it is sticky. If you get it's kind of addictive, and you can get hooked. But if you lay that aside, let the tractor beam take you in a better direction.
Good riptide.
There's so much satisfaction and peace that we talked about last time, and to be had by moving in the opposite direction.
I feel like two main complaints that people have about the idea of God, especially in the context of hell existing, is one, it's not fair, it's not good and just if God throws somebody in there. Like that's evil, that's wrong, which we agree with. And the second one is, I think, indignation at a machine that lets some people fall through the cracks. Because I feel like whenever you start to talk about right and wrong, they'll say, well, what about if somebody this? Or they're thinking of someone they know. And like, well, this person, they don't like religion, they don't believe in God, but they're a good person. Are they just going to...
Right.
Because...
Or they didn't know it was wrong, or they... Yeah.
Yeah, right. This idea that there's cosmic winners and losers, and some people don't have a fair shot at it.
Yes, yeah.
That doesn't seem right.
Right. So... And a very deep concern that people have, just seems unfair. Well, the system seems unfair.
It's against what love itself would do. The tractor beam. Let's go back to the tractor beam. The tractor beam is trying to pull you into heaven and doesn't ever switch off.
No, true.
It's not like, well, we tried. Now they chose hell instead, so that's their problem. I'm going to go hang out with my real friends. This is God saying this. With my real friends in heaven.
Yeah.
The effort and attention of God on a single human being, it never changes. It's always trying to get you to the happiest possible place you'll allow.
That's right.
God to get you to.
Whatever that highest number is, get you to that number. Yeah.
Whatever the character of it is. This is what Swedenborg says about that. Heaven and Hell 549. The reason the Lord cannot treat everyone alike from his divine essence, which is goodness, love, and mercy, is that our evil and false preoccupations stand in the way, not only blunting his divine inflow, but even rejecting it. These evil and false proclivities are like black clouds that stand between the sun and our eyes and deprive us of the clear sunlight. All the while, the sun is trying to dispel the clouds. And he goes on in Divine Providence 337. The reason that everything Divine Providence does is done out of pure mercy is that the divine essence is pure love. This is what is working through divine wisdom, and this working is what we call Divine Providence. Then he goes on a big lettered list. The pure love is pure mercy. A, because it is at work with everyone in the whole world, and by our nature, we're all incapable of doing anything on our own. So it's no favorites. B, it is at work with the evil and the unjust, and with the good and just alike. So no favoritism. God is going to try through love itself and all the wisdom in the world to help us. It is leading people who are in hell and rescuing them from it. So you're in hell. There's
leading people.
There's still, we're still tractor beaming you.
We're making, still tractor beaming.
D,
That's right.
It is constantly struggling with them in hell and fighting for them against the devil, that is, against the evils of hell.
I love that. It's incredible. That's just incredible.
So when Swedenborg says the devil, and he clarifies the evils of hell, which would mean whatever evil we talked about before, that you're loved in, and you're absorbed in, that's what's blocking you from God. Even though you feel like, I want to go after this thing, I want this thing, I want this to be my friend and live with me. God is fighting for you against that thing in you.
Yes.
Constantly.
Yeah.
Because
doesn't see you as identified with that in a sense.
Right.
You're better than this.
God is always fighting for you. Whether he's fighting for you, if you're accepting, if you're on a heavenly path at that time and you're accepting what's coming from God, then maybe God's fighting against, external things that are trying to attack you. But if you're embracing evil and loving it, God's still fighting for you. He's fighting for you against whatever it is that you got inside yourself that's blocking you.
Yeah. Yeah.
E, that is why it came into the world and underwent temptations, even to the final one, the suffering on the cross. That would be the incarnation of Jesus. That all of that was an effort of God to free us from our hells. F, it is constantly at work to make the unclean clean and the insane sane.
Wow. That's a statement right there.
So it is constantly laboring out of pure mercy.
That's really, really beautiful, because I remember some high school biology textbook that said first sentence, all things tend toward a state of chaos and decay. The basic law of entropy.
Thermodynamics.
And yet this is saying that we call it a tractor beam that's working to make the unclean clean. To make you clean, no matter how unclean you got in your life.
And the insane sane.
Yeah. And no matter how insane. And those things seem to go together, don't they? Because there's a kind of insanity. People even say that about, oh yeah, we went insane this weekend, Well, you probably don't mean, oh, we did a lot of good for people. That's not usually what you mean.
I ate 4 tubes of Ritz crackers.
Yes, right.
Went insane this weekend.
Insane. And to try to make thank heavens there's something pulling us in the direction of sanity and cleanness, because, by our own lower nature, we start out kind of chaotic, I would say.
I have 2 things I want to say about that. It's a great point. The first is, yes, we've discovered these principles of entropy. Everything seems to be falling apart. I know some people will say it's not really an exception to that, but a sort of exception to that is in the case of life, where life is this force that seems to be creating, maybe people argue not on a net, like the whole, but seems to be creating order, more ordered things out of less ordered things.
You can't understand how, like, the human brain came about, which is a highly ordered organism, and so how did that just entropy its way into existence?
So, what you see in the principle of life, like if you look inside of a human body, you'll see that there is a force in the body that is, to varying degrees of success, trying to make the unclean clean and the insane sane. So in your body, if it detects that there's an area in you that's infected with some kind of bacterium or virus, and that's unclean. So it will try to make that clean. It will send all these little white blood cells and whatever else needs to go there to go, and little T cells have a little battle and try to do that. And if there's something that's insane, meaning if you've got something's out of joint or something, it's trying to bring it back into that order.
Yeah.
So you see that's an effort happening. Swedenborg says the human body is like an image of what heaven is, which is an image of God, which is an image of the angelic state inside each person. So there's a force, there's a precedent for this. So there is a force that tries to do that. And if you think about looking inside yourself, like if you were just to like microscope my brain, and you'd be like, there's not that, I thought there'd be more in there than there is. There's not really that much more. But you'd probably see some parts in there if I were just to self-assess. Some things are going all right, but there's probably a lot of parts that are unclean and insane.
Yeah.
So within each individual, it's not just like, oh yeah, there's those people over there, unclean, insane, God's fixing them up. Luckily, I live in this zip code over here. Inside you, there's a constant labor of God to lead the parts of you that are still in hell out of hell and to make them, clean them up and bring them to sanity. That's what's trying to happen over the course of life.
And I'm thinking this is not only on the individual level, it happens within us, but there was some stat that they had, because often there's been this idea that crowds, and it's true, sometimes crowds can be evil. They can do, they can do crazy stuff as a crowd.
Mob mentality.
But generally speaking, crowds do more stopping of violence. Like they will prevent, if something breaks out, other people will try to intervene. They'll try to separate people. And so it's not only within us internally, but there's also a societal effect, that's sometimes more effective than others. But that if you're going off the rails, the community will try to pull you back, like, hey, going too far here, and
that's a good point. Is not whether or not you agree with the particular formation of them. Isn't that what laws are? Laws are an attempt, by the human race in our clear, sober states to set out a structure that will make the unclean clean and the insane sane.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we're trying to do that.
That's right. We're trying to do that.
So this is like a little shadow of what God is doing all the time
on a massive scale.
I want to end this, because we're talking about hell a lot here. I want to end this by letting some people who are in hell and have chosen to be there get to say what they want to say. And no, it's not me and Jonathan. Yeah,
we already had our say.
All right. Some more people who are in hell. This is actually, this is how Swedenborg ends his book, Divine Providence. And I think, shows very well the dynamic. It illustrates, because it shows you what people in hell would want to say if they could say something.
Yeah.
It shows you how they view their own existence, and it shows what their intentions are. It also shows why they are in hell in the first place.
And after a whole book about divine providence, what a fascinating way to end the book.
And so this is Divine Providence 340. He starts it by saying, "Forgive me for adding the following to fill out the rest of the page."
As if it was just a blank paper situation.
You told me that it's because paper was expensive to print on, so to have it was bad form to have like a few lines at the end of your last page. So I think he's making a joke.
Yeah.
By special permission, some spirits came up from hell and said to me, "You have written a great deal that the Lord has given you. Write something from us as well."
I love it.
I answered, "What should I write?" So right there, but
he didn't say no, right?
He didn't say no.
He said, what would you like to say?
But even before that, so this is spirits coming up from hell. What are they going to say to you? Well, of course, what they're going to say is, "We're sorry. Please have mercy on us. God's wrath is too much for us to bear. We should have accepted Jesus or whatever we didn't do, right?
Warn you not to walk on the path that we took."
That would
God
be
is a monster. Yeah.
If you cherish the notion that God rages against people and condemns them into hell, you would think the first thing out of the mouth of someone who's getting to come out of hell and talk would be something like that, some kind of plea for release from hell.
And it strikes me that this is one of the clearest places in everything Swedenborg wrote of a sense, he alludes to this sometimes, but that he was getting inspiration from the divine to write what he wrote. Evil spirits are testifying to that. They come up from hell and they say, "Yeah, we've been tracking your book. you've written a lot of stuff from that side. How about getting a minority opinion here?
Yeah, the Lord is telling you some stuff, but let me clarify. Let me see if I can spin this. Okay, so I answered, what should I write? They said, write that every spirit, whether good or evil, has his or her own delight. A delight in goodness for the good, and a delight in evil for the evil.
These sound like wise evil spirits. I mean, they're telling the truth.
Let's see what they get up to. I asked, what is your delight? They said that it was a delight in adultery, theft, fraud, and lying.
Those are 4 of my favorite things I have to say.
So they're like, those are the things we enjoy. It's not everything, but these are the main, this is what we chose our neighborhood. Like, we love that. And they know it.
Interesting that there's a list of 4. It's not one. There's these 4 things. They absolutely love it.
And they know it. They know that that's what they're into. I went on to ask, what are these delights like? They said that others experienced them as stenches from excrement, foul odors from corpses, and the reek of stale urine.
Oh,
that's weird. That's weird.
Fun list of odors right there. And others experience them that way. Like if others come around them, I can see why you'd have to have a separation, because if others are smelling corpses and stale urine every time,
Yeah. So
not pleasant to be around.
If people aren't familiar with how the spiritual world works according to Swedenborg, just to snap you out of the fever dream you feel like you've entered here, everything there, the inner nature of things becomes perceptible as sensory impressions. So here,
and there's a truth in it.
There's a truth. Yes.
Yeah. Right.
That's a good way to put it.
Right,
there's a truth in it. So there, something that is foul. We will allude to this here. We will say that's that's a foul thing to be thinking, or that's disgusting that you would. Whereas there, the things they just mentioned, adultery, theft, fraud, lying, these things that do damage people and are terrible, they actually they stink. Those things themselves
actually reek.
Smell like if you are a good person, you come near, you catch a whiff of that. So that's what they're saying. They're saying some people find this stuff utterly disgusting. Yeah. Then they go on. I said, and do you find them pleasant? They said that they were absolutely delightful. I said, then you are like filthy beasts that live in substances like these.
Because there are insects or whatever, that are drawn. Oh, is that stale urine?
Stale urine by Dijon, or like some perfume company. They said, if we are, we are. But to our nostrils, these scents are delightful. I asked, what else do you want me to write? They said, write this, that we are allowed to live in our own delights, no matter how filthy they are, as some would say, you squares in heaven would say, as long as we do not harass good spirits and angels.
Okay. So there's a sense of the rules.
Yep.
Knock yourself out. As long as you're not harassing good spirits and angels, you do you.
But since we cannot help harassing them, we are driven off and cast into hell, where we suffer terribly.
Okay, so there is a catch, which is a part of what they love, as we were talking about before, because all those things are antisocial. Adultery breaks up homes, right? And fraud, like destroys people's businesses.
Yes,
they're livelihoods.
It's not victimless crimes. As you said, right. With the energy vampire, the joy they get in all these things is the harm they're doing to someone. And they know, hey, we're allowed to do this as much as we want. And I guess there's even sort of more of a pass for them to do it to each other. But if they're going outside of people who did not enter this agreement of we want to be in hell, they're going outside that to go and victimize people. There's a no.
A hard stop.
They know if I cross this line, there's going to be consequences. But I really want to. I can't help it. So I go and do it, and then I pay the price. But then here I am again. I'm still not saying I want to get out of hell or anything.
Right. No, that's right.
I said, why do you harass good people? They answered that they could not help it. It was as though a rage came over them when they saw angels and sensed the divine aura around them. I said, "This makes you like wild animals." When they heard this, a rage came over them that looked like blazing hatred, and to prevent them from doing any harm, they were taken back into hell.
So they basically confirmed what he said. He said, "You're like wild animals," and they go, "Rawr."
So this, yeah, and obviously this is, like, I think this really was an experience that happened. It's obviously like truncated or simplified.
Yeah.
But I think the takeaways from this, assuming that this is an experience he really had, is one is that it seems like the intent of those spirits was talk smack about heaven and say it's not as good as you think, and really kind of try to sell hell and say, yeah, some people might think this is bad, but
yes,
we love it.
To us, it's intensely delightful. We love it.
Yeah, I would think they had some sort of intent of like, yeah, you're saying all this stuff from heaven, but we're going to sway you here.
Yes,
we're gonna sway you, and then it doesn't really go how they want it.
Other people's opinion.
Yeah,
they see it as bad.
But
we love it.
Let me open your eyes here. But then it doesn't go as they want. Swedenborg is kind of, he's poking them. He's being a little bit rude. He's like, you're wild animals, and
he's mostly asking questions, which is pretty impressive. He's he's doing an interview, but he's got to say, reality check. Like, doesn't that make you wild animals, or like these filthy little creatures that love that stuff? So
it shows they can't hold this conversation or handle a debate like this without there's imminent violence, and so they're removed from it.
Yeah, and so it said at the beginning they were prepared, or so, what did it say? It was something about they were with special permission or something. They came up, and so there was some kind of parameters put on this thing, and I'm very interested because in Luke and other places in the Bible it suggests that the afterlife is an honest world, and I'm struck by how honest they are. You know what I mean?
Yes,
they're not trying to deceive him. They're actually telling him, look, here's the big four. We love adultery. We love fraud. Here's our list. And this is what these delights are perceived, how they're perceived by others. But then when Swedenborg kind of riles them, like their ego or something, they get mad. Well, right? When he's, you're like these disgusting, little creatures in latrines or something, and they get angry and kind of confirm what he was just saying. And this rage, and they had just talked honestly about how this rage comes when they perceive people who have that divine aura, like the angels who are living in God and God in them, and they're radiating that divine sphere. It just enrages them, and they can't help it. They have to go on the attack. They just hate that so much.
It's all about is good good and is evil evil. It's not about these particular people are evil, these particular people are good. Because these people that are coming up here, what they're doing is saying, you know what we do? We love adultery, fraud, theft, lying, all these things that you're hurting people. You're causing damage and harm to people. How can you sit there and say this is good? You can't do that. It's not, because it's not good.
No. Right.
It's not good. And
their only defense is we love it.
That's
right. I mean, it's basically we love it a lot,
which is fine for you. But when someone does it to you, and you're like, "Hey,
you'd be furious,"
and if they say that's because I love it, I don't care what you love. You can't do that.
Yeah, you just hurt me.
That's what this whole conversation is about. It is about, look, everybody, we should be on the same team. There's such a thing as evil, which is the pleasure in causing harm. It's insane. It's an insane thing to enjoy.
It's not arbitrary on God's part to say, I just don't like this kind of behavior. I like people who do this. I don't like people who do that. It's not like that. This is actually intrinsic. You cannot build a society on those things.
Right.
Right. God's wisdom knows that's not how, it's not loving. That's the opposite. That's not how you build a society.
All the misery that the human race experiences comes back to the loving and committing of those evils. If we weren't doing that, if people weren't doing that, everybody would be happy. Everybody would be having a great time.
Yeah.
Being alive would be the greatest thing ever.
It'd be a wonderful planet to be on.
So all this of like heaven and hell and all that is all the big project to try to separate out evil from good and try to get us to choose what is good.
Yes.
And it's not like these two. So we have this interview and we hear, there's a couple of spirits from hell. Whoever those people are, God knows their name.
Yep.
That he knows, what they could have been. He's there sitting with them every day, trying to make this day a little better, trying to keep them away from that evil. Like, this is not, it's not like even in reading this, you and I are like, oh yeah, those people, who cares about that? Like, this is a constant effort of God to separate out not people, but evil from the human race.
God's not only thinking about Swedenborg, he's thinking about those people.
Exactly the same.
This will be useful.
Yeah.
It'll be fun for them.
Yeah.
I'll give them special permission. They can come up and they can see this. When it gets too much, I'll, take care of it.
Because
move them back so they don't do harm and everything. But
not only is it protecting Swedenborg from getting harmed, it's protecting those spirits, because if they commit that evil,
yes, they are going to get punished.
They get punished, but also get
better for them to
more
just be removed,
more entrenched, more infected with that evil. Because the more you do it, the more it becomes a part of you.
Yeah.
God is love itself. Never would want to harm anyone. Never gets upset with anyone. Never has anybody that he doesn't care that much about anymore. Is constantly trying to bring happiness to us. The thing that thwarts that plan is if we get absorbed in evil and throw ourselves into hell. Even then, God is trying to get us out of it all the time, and is trying to do that work in each of us daily. So yeah, there's hell, but not as a punishment. It's a safety mechanism. It's part of how you can give people who are devoted to evil the best life they can have. Like that's a whole different dynamic. That is a whole. There's no cherishing of the notion that people are in hell. It's more like, all right, triage. How do we solve this evil crisis in the best way?
And I think even if I don't know if this is true. I don't know if Swedenborg says exactly this, but it strikes me that if you're sitting on the fence, undecided or something, the tractor beam will just pull you in a positive direction.
Yeah,
you've really got to mean it.
Yeah,
and like those spirits, you have to get to the point where you're willing to attack the good. Like, you're so single-minded about it that you're going to attack Swedenborg. You're going to attack whoever's a good angelic person because you hate that so much. Yes, that sends you in the opposite direction.
Right.
But if you're kind of on the fence, you get pulled in a positive direction.
Because that's what God is, love and positivity. All right. Cool, man. Thank you for, I feel like this was a complex, deep dive subject.
Yeah, seriously. That's a difficult one.
Yeah, I feel like there's more we could say, but I think that the core point, which is that God is not evil, that's pretty important.
Yes, and that the system is rational. It actually makes sense how it works and how it fits with a loving God and so on. So, I love that.
Good. All right. Well, thanks for coming by. I'll see you very soon.
Thank you very much for the very nice time.
Yeah.